Hi guys, Dave here from Love Gymnastics and Love Admin. Thanks for joining us for this third webinar. It's digital gymnastics after reopening, what stays and what goes. So who thought that 2 months ago we'd be sitting here discussing digital content for gymnastics clubs? After the initial scramble of, wow, we've got to do something, I think now's a great time to pause and look at what is working well, what's perhaps not working so well, what we should do more of, what we should do less of, and then what does it look like when we go back to the gym. So today we have Kim Ransom with us. She's our Love Gymnastics brand manager. She's going to be running the webinar for us. And we have Sarah Fennell-Cooper from Happy Gymnastics joining us today as well. So I'm going to be handing over to Kim now. Kim, over to you.
Okay, so just a little clarification. Next week, actually, Sarah is joining us. She's going to be, she's going to lead the preschool conversation next week. So I'm sure that we will follow up today in the Facebook group with the actual registration link for that if you'd like to attend. But Sarah's from Happy Gymnastics. Dave, if you click on the next screen, that will give you a little information about Sarah. She is the founder of Happy Gymnastics, which is a great lesson planning company for preschool types and theory and all of that fun stuff. So she's a fantastic resource. Okay, so Dave, are you going to be my clicker today?
I'm going to be your clicker.
Okay, I have a lot of bullet points here, so.
Well, shall I just make you the host, Kim?
Actually, all I have to do is share my screen. So as long as I have screen sharing permissions. Yep, so you just have to get off of your screen and then I can share my screen. Okay, let's try this again. Oops. Sorry, guys. Seems you have lost the screen. Dave, go ahead. It's okay. Just go ahead and share your screen.
Okay.
Keep everyone waiting.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. All right. So if you click one more time on this screen, Dave, it'll give you the last bullet point, I believe. There we go. Okay. So today we're talking about what is working. So where am I getting this information? Well, again, I'm a person who has the luxury of basically studying the gymnastics business now. So my job is to work with Love Gymnastics on some of their content, but I also work for myself in the gymnastics business arena. So that means that I get to take a 30,000-foot view of what's going on in the landscape of gymnastics. And I believe that 2 weeks ago when we had this webinar, I mentioned that I had sent out a national survey over here just to get a little bit of an idea of what the parents were thinking about when they were considering coming back to the gym, you know, soon this summer and the fall, just to get their opinions and how they felt. So I've got those results back, and we collected about 1,000 survey results, which in the grand scheme of things isn't really, you know, it doesn't really touch the pool of parents in the US that are gym families, but it was enough to give us a really good idea of a sample of kind of where their brains are. So I'm going to use a lot of the feedback that they gave me today to talk to you. So we're going to hear about some common threads of what is working digitally for the parents and the kids. We are going to get a little bit of insight from the gym owner interviews that I've done over the past couple of weeks. And then I have a few visual examples of what is working for some gyms over here. So at the end, we'll give you a little analysis. I have a lot of thoughts around what to keep and why. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we have quite a few bullet points on here, so hopefully Dave can keep up with my mouth. So the first one is Zoom for connection value. What I've found overwhelmingly through gym owner interviews and parent feedback is that Zoom is working best when we're talking about keeping in touch with the kids. it hasn't seemed to work super well with actual instructional technique because it's live. So if a parent is working and they can't catch the actual live, then there goes that instruction content, right? So it's more for supervision of conditioning, flexibility, as much visual cues that they can give a child over Zoom with technique. That seems to be helpful, but mainly it's gotten the best feedback in terms of bonding for the kids and coach to gymnast engagement. So the next one would be on demand for instructional value. This is where the delivery of actual technique seems to be best delivered. So when I say on demand, I mean pre-recorded videos that can be uploaded to YouTube or found again in an email or hosted on your membership website, whatever that's going to be. Basically just on demand is kind of content that they can access at any point in time on their own schedule. Okay. One tip for the on demand also that seems to be working is dividing the content per age, per level, and per activity. So we did get some feedback, which I think I've included on a further slide, about having the content actually be niched down to be more appropriate for toddlers, mommy and toddler, for school age beginners, advanced school age, and then teen programs. So the next one would be emailed workout formats. I've seen great success with gyms that have maybe not gone the route of using an app or spent a lot of time or resources on outside digital platforms, but just stuck with using an email drip. So for example, Love Gymnastics has the email templates inside of their software. I've seen great success with gyms just using a consistent, organized email format to deliver content either on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And then the next bullet point would be smaller, shorter content as opposed to the longer lessons. In the beginning, I saw and talked to a lot of gym owners that were trying to basically take everything that they were doing on the floor in the gym and just plug and play that into an online format. Well, when you think about it, our classes tend to be 45 minutes to 60 minutes on the floor. And to ask a child to sit and watch a screen, even with movement is a lot. So the content that was 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour just wasn't getting watched. So breaking that down into 5-minute chunks, 10-minute, 20-minute chunks seems to have a higher participation rate. Next, we have consistent communication, and this one probably should have been the first on the list. Overwhelmingly, the parent feedback was, oh gosh, if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say a good 65 to 70% of the comments were surrounding communication that either wasn't happening or they were commending their gym for the great communication for a multitude of reasons. A couple comments we got were, the gyms that had asked their families to keep paying tuition, they felt like the level of communication didn't match their tuition payment, which I thought was interesting. So they weren't necessarily asking for fantastic, mind-blowing gymnastics content online. They were just asking for the same general experience of feeling valued and respected, and to them, that comes through consistent communication, whether it's about the schedule or something that's going to happen, or even just, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're still here and we still see you. Next, we have individual connections. This was another huge one. Overwhelmingly, parents asked for coaches to really dig deep and think of ways that they could still keep connecting with the kids, with the gymnasts. So when you think about Zoom, that's a group technology platform. A lot of us are using that, but we're looking at 10 kids at a time. So if we're doing short 20-minute sessions or 30-minute sessions, and we're trying to teach content at the same time, we don't always have the time to slow down and call out each child individually. If you are, great, that's fantastic. But I think what they're asking for is something that's a little more than just a, hey, I see you, Susie, back there pointing your toes, great job. I think they're asking for, you can go to the next bullet point, Dave, postcards to be sent home. Things like handwritten notes and handwritten letters. I know a lot of gyms are paying their staff, because here we have to fill some staff hours for the loan money that we've received. A lot of these gyms are asking their coaches to replace coaching with engagement. So writing letters, writing postcards, sending quick emails, the drive-by visits. Not everybody has capability to do that, but I'll give you an example of a drive-by event in a further slide, but they are doing just parades of driving by team gymnast house. You know, that's a bigger deal, right? That takes a lot of coordination and resources and probably some off time, but you get the idea. They're looking for personal connection. They're looking for value. They're looking for you to tell them that you haven't forgotten about them and that you still care. And then coaching calls, that's a really easy one to do that I forgot to mention. Just taking 5 minutes at a time and going through a list of your families and having the coaches call the children, making some personal contact. Any questions? We do have a chat function here, so please feel free to pop your questions in as I'm speaking. You can go ahead and click, Dave. This is an example that I wanted to include. This is actually one of my clients, and she is located in Atlanta, Georgia. She posted this on her social media the other day, and I thought this was a fantastic representation of what comes back to you when you just slow down a little bit and take the time to actually combine some personal touches with your digital content. I won't read it to you, but I thought that was really sweet. And you can really tell from, you know, the mom that wrote that, you can really tell how much it meant to her. And it didn't cost her more than, you know, 5 minutes of her day. So, okay. Next slide, Dave. This is another one, and if you click a couple more times, I think there's 2 more pictures on this slide. So this is also a gym in North Carolina over here. Now, I thought this was fantastic. She had an event planned before the pandemic hit. Oh, that's a really big picture. She had this plan before the pandemic hit, and it was her end of year celebration. She could have canceled it, but she used it as a culmination of her online content. So they had started their curriculum for this end of the year show, I think way back in January or February. They were shut down in the middle of March. And she kept it going, and she just figured out a way to make it happen without having everybody in the building, basically. She set up a little podium outside in the parking lot. I think she set one up inside, as you can see that little girl, but she had individual families in, one at a time. And while this probably doesn't work to a T for everybody, I thought it was a really creative way of just keeping some normalcy for the kids. And it also created a way for her to kind of dangle a carrot at the end of her programming. So it provided a way for these kids to keep working towards something online, even if they didn't want to be online. You know, this is where their recital routines were, and their favorite coaches, and the same props over the screen. And then at the end of the year, you know, they had the families drive by and let them stand up and get their medal. I thought that was really nice. And most importantly, it kept that gym owner's spirits up. I know that for sure. Here's another one that's working. If you click 2 more times, I think there might be 2 more. Couple more times. Here we go. There's one more picture. So this gym is a gym that my daughter takes tumbling classes from. So what I like about this on the screen is that they have worked really hard on their branding. This is a gym that's been open for 20 years or so. It looks like 21 years. They always keep their branding consistent, and it goes a long way for them because it really conveys kind of a sharpness and a current, just a current vibe. You know, they're fun, they're edgy. What they have done for online content is they do use an app, but they also have basically just taken their schedule from their floor, so you can see it in the upper right-hand corner, and they've put it onto Zoom. They convey their schedule through WhatsApp. I get notifications on WhatsApp every day in different groups. And then they've also brought in a guest coach. So one of their old tumblers has gone on to Baylor and had a very successful career as an acrobatic gymnast there. So she's come back to kind of be a guest presenter, and that's injected a lot of excitement into this schedule. So, but overall, I just wanted to show this screen to you, but because I think they've done a really great job of keeping their thumb on what their actual brand is, even though they can't see each other, they've just put that right onto their online content, and they're still, it's not messy, it's not sloppy, they look neat, they look put together, and it's something that the parents want to participate in as well as the kids, and I know they have very high participation rate.
And Kim, just on that, so they're pushing that out via the WhatsApp group, but I guess they're also pushing that out via social?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they have, the same thing they're putting in WhatsApp, they're putting in their Facebook groups just as a notification, but the classes are actually held on Zoom. So they have Zoom codes, as you can see, but they are notifying their members in a multitude of different ways. And I'm sure I don't actually get their emails, but I'm sure they're doing it over an email reminder as well.
Okay, so a great tool for that, guys, is a piece of software called Canva that allows you to create these types of graphics that are already sized for like Facebook and for Instagram. So we'll pop the link for that into the Facebook group.
On that note as well, Adobe Spark is also a really good free platform to use that's similar to Canva, just a little different style and format. Okay, next one. All right, so what is not working? Well, here we have some fun stuff. What's not working? So not offering alternatives, only having live sessions. This was a gripe on the feedback from parents that, people work in the daytime and people have all different situations that they're in at the moment, and not offering an on-demand option really seems to be kind of a recipe for low participation. And I know from talking with gym owners as well that it seems to be dependent on both program and age group. So the programs where they are competitive, where they're running competitive teams, the Zooms are working better than on demand because it seems to hold them a little bit more accountable. But for the gyms that are recreational and don't have a competitive component, it seems to be that the on demands are working better. So if you're only offering live, you might want to rethink that. Next one. Okay. This was a gripe I heard from coaches, actually. A lack of accountability in motivation in athletes. So I kind of attack this from two different lanes. My first thought is that as a coach and as a gym manager, I think we need to be careful that we're not interpreting a lack of participation and motivation in gymnasts as something personal. We can't interpret that as I'm not doing, they're not dedicated to my program. They're not a serious gymnast. There are a multitude of reasons that someone doesn't participate in online gymnastics. And I know, from my end, that there are just going to be kids that don't want to do it. It just is what it is. There's always going to be a group of kids that just don't like an online delivery, and that's fine. That's fine. But there are ways that we can improve motivation and we can improve participation for the group of kids that do want to participate. And one of those ways is to pay attention to the content you're asking the kids to do, right? So if you have a group of younger kids, that's going to be different than a group of teenagers that you're dealing with. When we're looking around for ideas and we feel like we're getting stale and we can't think of anything fresh, I know it's difficult, but what I would really challenge you to do is not necessarily just plug and play other people's ideas, but sit down and really think about some strategy for you in your gym. Now, what comes to mind for me, I kind of always fall back to this. I'm going to give you a nerd out moment here. The Piaget's theory of child development. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the child development kind of cognitive stages, but kids learn in different ways and they are not mini adults. So if we are asking them to think like adults, we're setting ourselves up to lose. So if your content online for the little kids, for the toddlers, it's not sensory or tactile, gross motor skills, you're setting them up to fail. For the next age group up, the kind of 7 to 9-year-old kids, those guys are still doing play. They're still doing imaginative work. They're still looking for pretend. So we can still be a little bit creative and kind of thematic with our content. We can still have fun with them, and we can niche down and do specialty funny classes and things that are a little bit silly. The next age group up, the 9 to 11, those kids are kind of figuring life out a little bit more, and they can handle harder skills. That's also the age when they start to compare themselves to each other. And that's an age group that works really well with competition and games. If you've ever scrolled through the Love Gymnastics app, the credit wheel that they have. Sorry, Dave, if I'm slaughtering this and doing a bad description, but I know that it's there, and I love it because I think it speaks to that age group so well, where they're familiar with video games and they're familiar with competition and accumulating points and having goals, and that's what motivates them, challenges. So lastly, the teenage group, those are brains that are smarter and more developed, and they can handle creation. They can work with you to create plans. You can get them involved in lesson plans. You can speak to them and ask them what they want to do. You can ask them to create their own challenges. You can ask them to work with you even in some really fun marketing content. So that age group, they're also motivated by social factors. So you're going to just up your cool points if you take the creative work that they've done and publicize it, so their peers can give them accolades, right? So all of those age groups have different just cognitive abilities, and I would really challenge you to think more strategically about the content that you're publishing and the way that you're doing it in order to up participation. All right, next bullet point here. No progression, culmination, or goals within the content. This goes back to that example from Kim from North Carolina. This worked out so well for her because she was able, like I said, to kind of dangle that carrot on the end of the stick, just hang in there with this online content until such and such a date when we have this event or when this thing happens. One kind of similar problem that I've solved with my brick and mortar gym in the past is that, in gymnastics, we have a very steep dip in the summertime, typically, of drops. I would imagine it's the same with you. But something that I did to combat that was I started a rec team, or a very low key, super low key competitive team, but I moved it off season. I made it an off season team. It was solely to solve this problem because I wanted my kids in the summertime to have a progression and a culmination and have goals at the end of the summer that would increase the likelihood that their parents would pay me over the summer. So kind of killed two birds with one stone. So I would challenge you to come up with some sort of a goal or a reason for kids to participate that has a start date and an end date. Next bullet. No engagement from original coaches. So this came from actually the parents and the gym coaches. So this is a tough one because I know a lot of us have furloughed coaches at the moment, and there's kind of a limit to what we can ask them to do. Everyone's situation is different, but I think the point here is that some of the parents felt like their gyms were either ignoring them and not offering anything at all, which wasn't necessarily a good thing, or they were kind of replacing the content. They were replacing the classes with coaches that their gymnasts had never met. And it felt awkward to their child, which made them not want to log on. So we had a lot of requests asking if there was any way possible, could the gyms please get their original coaches to kind of teach their original groups of children. Next bullet. Lastly here, not having consistency in scheduling or coaches delivering material. This is a tough one because, again, we all have different situations, but We had a lot of requests from parents to please keep their times the same. If you're going to do a Zoom Live or a Facebook Live, if their child was previously in a Monday 5 o'clock class, could you please deliver that Zoom for that group of kids at Monday 5 o'clock? Because a lot of these parents are still working from home. They're trying to keep the same schedule at home for everybody's sanity. So they're not letting their children participate in their activities until that same time. So this is where either being able to keep that schedule is really important, or having that online on-demand content available for their 5 o'clock download. That's really important. Before we move on here, there's one last thing, one last bullet point, tuition. So I don't want to get into tuition because I don't want to really have debates. Everybody's kind of handling tuition differently. But we did have some parent comments about paying tuition and being asked to pay tuition, but then not receiving any value. So I know a lot of gyms had a huge amount of parents that were willing to keep paying tuition while not coming to class, which is fantastic. But there were also a pretty hefty amount of comments that had something to do with just not feeling seen or heard, but being asked to continue to pay tuition. So if that's you, you might want to approach that, at least give that issue a little bit of attention and make sure that your families are feeling okay with that. All right, next slide, Dave. Okay, so I wanted to include some actual parent feedback. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but we have 2 slides here. They illustrate the 2 slides before, the 2 issues before. So I like compassion towards mental health and general well-being of my athlete. I thought that was really pertinent to call out. This is, as a gym parent myself, this is one of my top concerns. Lack of contact from coaches to our girls. Yeah. Okay. I think there's one more slide with a little bit more feedback. Here we go. More kind of requests for on-demand content. I thought this was 16 hours a week of Zoom and additional assignments. So that gym, that's clearly a competitive program, but they seem to be on the ball with their organization, and that's a really big deal too. Feedback. When you are requesting videos and some dialogue from the children, are you giving them feedback? Are you answering their emails? You know, if they're sending you a 1-page email about gymnastics, how much are you sending them back? Are you making them feel heard? Are you giving them praise? And then the last one, the only reason I included this last one was to spur some thought, okay? There are parents at home who buy home equipment, and I think most of us in the gymnastics world, as a coach, as a manager, or an owner, are not okay with gymnasts attempting home gymnastics. I'm just gonna blanket statement say that. But I included this because I want you to know that no matter how much we say this and how much we communicate this, sometimes we're just communicating it amongst each other and not so much to our parents. So if you are a person who is super adamantly against this, it might be a good time to reiterate that you don't suggest doing any at-home advanced bar work or advanced tumbling, wherever your line is, okay? And I know that BG has a lot of very clear, strict rules about outside gymnastics and home gymnastics, which is fantastic. But the reason I included this was because it might spur some innovation thoughts, okay? If these parents are asking you for some spotting instructions, what can you provide safely? What can you provide? So instead of thinking about it in a way that you just don't want these kids to do anything, so you're not going to approach this subject at all, well, that's probably a recipe for disaster, because they're probably going to do something and just not tell you. So what you could do is say, hey parents, we have a 20-minute video about what to look for in a great split, or how to achieve a better toe point. We have a 10-minute video on shoulder flexibility and the top 3 ways to improve your bridge. Whatever you want to do that makes your parent feel involved, that makes your parent feel like they're learning something as well, Or, it might just be a great opportunity for you to explain some things, or uh, explain some common misconceptions that you see in the gym. Like, I know, for example, that I used to have parents ask me all the time, well, I want to help my child get their split at home, so can I just push her down? I'm just going to walk behind her and push her down. How much should I do that? And I'd have to say, whoa, 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 that's not how we achieve splits anymore. Here are some things that she can do at home safely alternatively. So the point is, gear some lessons and content towards the parents. Don't forget about them. Include them, because they are the ones that pay the bills too, right? So child and the gymnast, or I'm sorry, the gymnast and the parent need some content. All right, next slide, Dave. Okay, what to keep? Overall, I'm going to say, probably won't be a surprise, but I'm a big strategy person. So when we are looking at these slides and when we are going through these bullets, I want you to keep in mind that just doing a plug and play of other people's ideas in your gym might not be the best way to go about this. You have to figure out what your strategy is for your gym, because you have a different program and you have a different market and you have different families that come to you just for you, for your brand and your gym and your mission. There are a lot of gyms out there, and your families come to you for a reason. So the digital content that you publish needs to be on brand and on mission. It needs to still reflect you, okay? So we're looking at a hybrid model. Going forward, post-pandemic, whatever that's going to look like, we know that our gym business and our gym period is never going to be the same. We have learned that things happen that we can't control. So we can either be prepared for it, or we can find ourselves in the same situation where we have 3 days to come up with a way to deliver gymnastics. Well, right now we're shut down and we have a lot of really great time to plan better. We have time to plan our content, invest our resources, talk to our coaches. We can do this better now. So one way that we can deliver this better in the future is by making sure that we're able to deliver a hybrid model. This is working the best. You have digital content, instructional, technical material to your limits and your boundaries that you feel comfortable with, plus personal contact, whatever that's going to look like. But I'm pretty sure you and your coaches can get together and brainstorm at least a good 10 ways that you can contact gymnasts and their parents and make them feel heard and valued. Next one. I do believe that it's imperative to start building your on-demand library and keep it, and keep updating that. Even after you open, there are so many ways that you can use an on-demand library of content for your own gym after you reopen. Go ahead and click, Dave. So focusing on strength and conditioning is going to be increasingly important in the future. This is a big area of focus over here for us. Most gyms are spending a lot of time and resources really developing the strength and conditioning aspect of their gym, even for the rec gymnasts, even for kids that never compete. This is an easy thing to put online. There are 1,000,001 ways to teach strength and conditioning online. If you're not quite sure, now's a really great time to reach out, find those resources, collaborate with the proper people, do your research, but start building a strength and conditioning library of very short 5 to 10 minute snippets, okay? Offer a lot of variety, but strength and conditioning, you're never gonna go wrong with investing there. Next would be specialty classes, okay? Again, niching down to the proper age and activity level and child development level, in my opinion. And then if you want to take that further, you can niche down into warriors classes, ninja classes, doing some themes, okay? Getting parents involved in both mommy and me toddler area, which would seem logical because that's what they do in your gym, but also gearing some content just for parents. Can you build out an online parent section? And what kinds of material would you include in that? And then lastly, repackaging as a standalone product. If you work on building an on-demand library now of content, when you reopen, you can sell that as an online class itself. There will always be people, there will always be something for someone. So just because you have only served those people that want to come to your gym prior to the shutdown doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that would buy this online gymnastics course as a standalone product for many different reasons, right? So if you can think about some sort of package that you are comfortable with, that can be a really great stream for you to kind of boost some cash in the door to after you reopen. But it's also your plan B, because if and when we should have to go through a shutdown again, that's going to be something that you can rely on as your backup plan. And then you can set those expectations for parents ahead of time when they're signing up for you. You know, hey, this is what we do if this should happen again. All right. Next bullet point is building your online brand authority. So we kind of saw that with Hot Cheer before. Making sure that you are looking clean and sharp and giving the idea to your families that you care about this, and this is a product worth paying for. This is something that is worth asking parents to invest their time in and asking the gymnasts to spend time on. You have to spend time and resources on that as well, and make sure that it represents you and your particular gym. The next one is set processes, expectations, and price adjustments. Yeah, I think we've covered that. Yep. Processes, expectations, and price adjustments. The trick here going forward is going to be, you've probably all updated your waivers by now, right? Updating your registration agreements and updating the processes that parents go through so they know, again, what's going to happen in the future if we should need to rely on these products. Let's make sure that you're taking care of any price adjustments now so it's not mass panic and confusion in the future. And make sure that you understand why you're pricing your digital products the way you are, and that you can back that up and have confidence in that in the future as well. And then lastly, this is going to be a biggie. Ooh, this might be getting into some business stuff here, but digitally, the skill sets that you need to upkeep and create an on-demand library might be a little bit different than the coaches, than what we have hired for when we're looking for coaches on the floor. I know that my staff in the past, there have been times when I've had fantastic staff on the floor, great staff with the kids, wouldn't have changed a thing. But if you asked them to do social media, you would have thought I asked them to drink a whole bottle of hot sauce, or there was no way they were going to put themselves out there in front of people in that way. So the skill sets don't always necessarily transfer. So I would really challenge you now, while you have downtime, to take a look at how you're hiring. Do you have anyone on staff who's creative, who's outgoing in a social media kind of way, or who has an entrepreneurial understanding that sometimes when unforeseen things happen, we have to change very quickly. We have to pivot very fast. So you need to have somebody on your staff that you can rely on and then you can work with to help you keep up on this area of your business in your gym. I know a lot of you don't own these gyms, but you might be responsible for the digital part. So having people on staff is key to make sure that you can have a smooth transition for digital content again. Next slide, Dave. I have no idea who Tony Zambito is, but I thought this was perfect. I did look him up and he seems to have a large persona online, so maybe he's a little legitimate. But regardless, this is great. This is exactly what we just talked about. Instead of using technology to automate processes, think about using technology to enhance human interaction. That is the trick. That is the key. Any online content going forward has to integrate the two, and that exactly backs up my hybrid theory here. You have to have some digital content, some way to deliver the actual material, but you cannot forget about that human interaction. And if that's something that you're struggling with, then we probably need to sit down and figure out a couple different ways to kind of unblock your mind and come up with some new ideas that reflect your gym and what kind of personal contact you want to have with the kids when you are doing this digitally. And I think there's one more slide here that I just thought was hilarious. When I was going through this parent feedback, I was scrolling, and I came to this one. And this mom clearly feels frantic. Don't know how you're gonna be able to stop these kids from tumbling and picking their nose. They're kids. I'm not sure if it's safe to open until there's a vaccine. Still undecided on that, but we all know these kids are gonna touch each other's sweat and snot and pick their nose and all the things. And then the very next comment was, go ahead, Dave, drum roll. It's time to reopen. So you guys have your work cut out for you. That's what this says to me. There's, you know what, there's a no right or wrong, but there's definitely a better and a best. You guys have a lot of decisions to make right now. We can pull out a lot of common themes to kind of help you and guide you, but just know that we are here to support you because we understand how difficult of a learning time this is for you all. So at this time, go ahead and click Dave. I would love to take any comments, questions, or have a little bit of a discussion surrounding your digital experience.
Perhaps people can share maybe things that have worked for them, share that with the rest of the community. Maybe there's things that haven't worked that Kim hasn't covered that would give people a good steer away from it.
Yeah, I know that signing up for this webinar, we had a couple questions just to get an idea of where everybody was in the process.
Yeah,
It seems pretty in line. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like some people weren't doing anything digitally at all. Other people were kind of having the same issue with just low participation from the children.
Yeah, I suppose the question with the participation is, what do we consider to be a good participation rate? Is it 30%? Is it 40%? And what's the benchmark? When I looked at the numbers that came in on the poll, it seemed to be around about the 40% mark.
So over here from the gym owners that I have spoken with, it seems like, well, number one, there's the question is, what's the definition of good? It's really just what you're happy with, right? What are you okay with? What do you consider a success? I think that's kind of individual to your gym, but it seems like most gym owners are happy around 50%. So the comments have been, hey, yeah, things are going really well. We have about half the gym participating. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, and I wonder how they are measuring participation.
Yeah, short of actually counting faces on lives and counting downloads, it's hard to know. That is hard to know.
So should we be following up when we are pushing content out? We should be surveying people on a regular basis just to make sure we got it right?
Oh, I don't think you can go wrong with surveys and communication. You can't over communicate, in my opinion.
Okay.
You cannot.
All right, got some questions coming in here. So from Talia, I think that is. Did you get many parents who indicated that they would be happy to receive online training rather than physical classes going forward?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that because one of the questions we had on the national survey was about summer. If you're not able to come back this summer, either for government reasons or for your own social distancing reasons, would you participate in online programming? We divided it up into 5 regions, and that question by far had an average of a 50% yes, we would participate, either a yes or a maybe, 50%. So that, to me, that's enough to continue to offer online programming.
Okay, good. From, I think it's Neela or Naila. We've done individual calls with gymnasts and parents as a general check-in, which have been well received to have that one-to-one time. Okay, so there, that feeds back to what you were saying earlier on, how important that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it just goes down to the communicating. Nothing replaces human interaction, and unfortunately now that has to be Zoom, phone, text, email. It can't be in person, but it still goes a long way.
So the challenge there is making it scalable, right? You got 1,500 kids in the gym. How are you going to do that with your furloughed workers?
Yeah, and not everyone's going to be into that too. So keep in mind that, you know, when you have a large program like that, the best way to do that is en masse. So with some Zoom sessions. So if you're sorting that into small chunks and you're giving every coach 10 Zoom sessions over 3 days to schedule out with 20 people at a time. Well, you can knock a lot out that way. So systematically, I think you can manage it. And not everybody's going to want to get on a Zoom call, remember. So I think it's manageable.
Even if you did it the old-fashioned way of just sending out emails. So, for example, with our system, you can insert the name of the gymnast into the email so it appears personal, right?
Yep.
So that's
Exactly right.
That's a 30-second job, and you can reach your 1,500 people. Okay, so from Parissa, we initially started with recorded content and then started doing Zoom. We have found Zoom has had a better uptake than recorded content, measured by the number of views on our private YouTube videos. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, good for you, because what this is about is testing and then pivoting, right? So whatever you think in your gut is going to work best for your market, that's where you start and you try it. And if it doesn't work, then you ask them why, ask them what they need, and you try something else. So that's great.
Okay, good. From Marie, we've started Zoom classes with the older gymnasts and find that it's going really well. We are starting classes with the 5 to 7-year-olds in a week or so. Any more advice on that for the 5 to 7-year-olds?
Yes, make it fun, because you will lose them if it's not fun and silly. Zoom and technology for gymnastics is already daunting at that age. It's different, and they're already freaked out when they see you on a screen instead of a person. So anything that you can do to mimic your normal routines from classes, any rituals that you have, any typical songs or props, if you can show them or sing them, anything you can do to increase the comfort level, but then also be extra exaggerated, extra fun, and extra creative and playful, because that's the period of age where they're still imagining and pretending. So that's what's going to speak to them.
Okay, good. From Andy, you speak about coaches speaking to gymnasts directly via Zoom, etc., to give feedback, but the governing body discourages this on child protection grounds. Where is the line on this? Common sense,
So
I guess.
yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple ways to look at that. So you all will have different protections, I suppose, than we do with Safe Sport. However, what we do, there are a lot of public apps. So there are apps that you can use which make text messages not private. So just because you're texting and just because you're emailing doesn't mean that you're only having a two-way conversation between gymnast and coach. Including other people is the way that we get around that. We still need to be able to communicate, but we need a lot of eyes and ears that are monitoring that communication. So without knowing your exact mandates and what's being passed down to you, we just make sure that when we're communicating, just because we're talking to one person doesn't mean that we can't have other people watching us and hearing us communicate. So look into your apps. We use Remind. You can still have conversations, group conversations, where you're calling out particular children. Like, hey, Susie, I saw you on Zoom today. You did a fantastic job with X, Y, and Z. How's your little brother doing? Or whatever you want to talk about. But there are other people on the group message, so there's never any danger of being called out for inappropriate action.
Good. Okay. From Karen, we have started recording coaches saying hi to children and sending this out. Also, just to set up Instagram with new videos, which is me or another staff member recording activities. This seems to be working better than just the app. It's the older children who are having the most uninteraction. We've also sent out SurveyMonkey, and the response was incredible. So thank you for suggesting that.
Yeah, those older ones, they're hard to really, really get your thumb on. You have to think like a teenager, right? So where are they? And you know what works really well over here, and you're gonna laugh, TikTok. TikTok is working really well as a means of communication with teenagers at the moment. We use it as rewards. So we might have a session teaching TikTok dances at the end of our conditioning. We've had whole TikTok classes from Hot Cheer over here, and they've gone over really well. But we tend to use what they think is cool as a reward. So we need them to get on and we need them to do their conditioning with us and participate. But in return for that, we're going to do all these fun things together. Or, do you know what? Get on and do a TikTok yourself and let them laugh at you. They already don't think you're cool, so you might as well just go with it.
So do you think then, do you think that for those teenagers that it's more about the platform to connect with them rather than the content?
Yeah, you know what? I do. Right now, I would have to say yes, because it feels like homework to them if it's not somewhere they already are. So they're social and they are creative. So we're trying to look for ways to work with both of those things. I am not proclaiming to have all of the answers for teenagers, but I do know that around here, that's where they hang out and that's what gyms are working with at the moment. And I know that different fads come and go with social media, but right now that fad that is speaking to the teenagers is TikTok. So a lot of gyms are integrating that into their programming.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, another one from Nyla. We have also done a team challenge day with gymnasts from development age up to seniors together in different teams. Gymnasts loved it and good parent feedback too. Included team colour and gymnasts dressing up in that colour, CrossFit type training, CrossFit type conditioning challenge, quiz and scavenger hunts to get them engaged. And a winning team at the end of the day. It was great to bring different gymnasts together as social interaction has proven just as valuable on Zoom from a parent survey we carried out.
That's great. That's fantastic. Anything with a goal, with lighthearted competition, I think is fantastic. That has a start time and an end time. It's perfect. Anything with an end time drives motivation for whatever reason, a start and a finish. What I'm wondering from reading this comment is, wonder if there's a way that we can have some gyms have a little friendly gym competition. I wonder if that would go over well with anyone. Nothing cutthroat or hardcore, but wonder if there would be anyone interested in kind of having a lighthearted gym challenge. That might be fun.
Okay, well, I think of.
Just throwing it out there. You guys can let me know. I can coordinate if so.
Good. From Jen, as a recreational club, out of 120 children, less than 30 did the warm-up stretching routine, which we uploaded on YouTube, and doing badges. I only had 10 asking for levels. How do I get more participation?
Yeah, I mean, without looking, I'm not sure what your curriculum looks like, or what your content looks like, or what your contact with them looks like. If it's a situation, let's see, are you doing any live touch? Less than 30 to the warm YouTube badges, asking for levels. So out of this, what I'm seeing is that there's no two-way dialogue. So I'm wondering if there's any Facebook Live or Zoom calls you're able to work with the kids. So is there any personal touch in here at any point in the process? Are there any conversations anywhere, any Facebook group posts? I'm not sure. So I don't know how much personal contact you're doing, but if you just publish something and push it out there and say, here, go do it, you're gonna get a lower response rate than if you are actively DMing moms, how's it going? Or if you're sending personal emails asking them how their participation is and what they can do. That might be a really good place to actually send out a survey, just a really quick 2-minute survey to your families with 10 questions, and ask them what else you can do, what would be better, what they would like to see, what they don't like within your routine. If you are stumped, the best thing to do is just reach out, be authentic, be honest, and ask.
Good. All right. Anything else from anyone else before we finish for today? We'll be putting the slide deck into the Love Gymnastics Facebook group. Any other resources that we will feel relevant to this webinar, we'll also post in there. We'll also be posting out shortly information on next week's webinar that Kim was discussing at the top there. Kim, anything else from you before we go?
No, just be on the lookout in the Facebook group for next week's sign up. Sarah is a very lively, energetic presence, so I'm really excited for you guys to meet her.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll we'll speak to you in the Facebook group. Okay.
All right.
Bye
Bye,
now.
everyone.
Bye.